Yes, hi, my name is George Zarakis, and today I would like to discuss about how to find the domain of a function. So first of all, let's say we have the function f of x. So this function can be written as a function f capital of some smaller functions, which will be the parts of this function here. So in order to find the domain of this function, I have to make sure that each one of these small, the parts of this function g1, g2, and whatever gn that they might be in the lower f function, that they satisfy all of these, they satisfy their domains. So what's the theory that you have to know about this topic here is, of course, what is a domain? Domain is where the independent variable x belongs. So x belongs to D, that's D here is the domain. And, through the function f, you have the independent variable x, and through this function you produce a value y, which is called the dependent variable, which has to do with the range of the function, which is something that we might discuss in some other session. What else you should know about this topic is the domain of the basic functions. By basic, I mean the functions that you might encounter here, and these are the functions that usually they are included in any college algebra course. So one of them is the polynomial function, which of course has domain the R, which is the set of real numbers. It's the log of x to base b function, which has as a domain all the numbers x that are greater than 0. You have also the even root function of x, x root 2n, which the domain of this function is all of the numbers x which are greater or equal than 0. Some others that we can mention is the inverse sine and the inverse cos, which their domains are from -1 to 1 included. And you might have some other functions that you have to deal, but that's not important. If you follow the rules that I'm telling you, you can find the domain of any function f of x. And it's also the function 1 over x, where here x of course cannot be 0. So the domain of this function is all real numbers except the value 0. So now let's do some examples. So let's say you want to find the domain of the function x over x minus 1. Your like component functions here is the x and the x in the minus 1. So what kind of function is this here? This is a rational function, so it's of this form here. So we have to make sure that the denominator is different than 0, so that means that x minus 1 has to be different than 0. And of course, if you solve this equation here, you have that x has to be different than 1. So that means that the domain of this function here, x over x minus 1, is all the real numbers except the value 1. Let's say, for example, we have another function, let's say cos minus 1 of 2x. So here your function it's of this form. So that means that the domain of your function is the numbers x that they make this function here, let's call this g1, to be between 1 and -1, because that's the domain of the inverse cos function. The x has to be between -1 and 1. So, I mean, very simply, if you divide both sides by 2, that means that your x has to be between -1/2 and 1/2. I mean, here, of course, since you divide with a positive number, the inequality sign stays as it is in both sides of the inequality. So the domain of this function is all the real numbers between -1/2 to 1/2 included. And that's about how to find the domain of any function. And I will give you a problem to do to check your abilities. So the problem is, what is the domain, of the function log of x squared plus 1 over x minus 1. So what is the domain of this function here? So you can do this here, and I will have the solution for you on my next video. So again, what is the domain of the function log of x squared plus 1 over x minus 1? So thank you for taking the time to view this video, and I hope you find it useful, and bye for now.